Asterisk, the guard wasn't supposed to move, wasn't supposed to speak, wasn't supposed to exist beyond being a statue in a red uniform. That was the rule. The sacred, unbreakable rule of the King's Guard. But on a cold November morning, Guard William Hayes did something no guard had done in over a century. He broke protocol. And the reason why would shake the very foundation of the royal family? It started with a letter. A single envelope tucked inside William's jacket pocket, pressed against his chest where his heart hammered with fear and purpose. He'd carried it for 3 days, waiting for the right moment. The impossible moment. The moment when he could hand it directly to King Charles. The problem was simple. Guards don't hand things to kings. Guards don't speak to kings. Guards certainly don't interrupt royal schedules with personal requests. But William was going to do it anyway. He stood at his post outside Buckingham Palace. Ramrod straight, eyes forward, breathing carefully. His hands trembled slightly inside his white gloves. The morning air was sharp and cold. Tourists snapped photos. Pigeons scattered across the courtyard. Everything was normal, except nothing was normal. Inside his jacket, the letter felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. 3 pages, handwritten, desperate. It wasn't his letter. It belonged to someone who couldn't deliver it themselves. Someone who was dying. William had 23 minutes until his shift ended. 23 minutes until he'd lose this chance. King Charles was scheduled to depart at 9:15. His car would pull up. He'd walk down the steps. He'd pass within 6 feet of William's post. That was the moment. The only moment. If you love stories about courage, impossible choices, and breaking the rules for the right reasons, subscribe to this channel. Real emotions. Real stakes. Real people facing extraordinary moments. Now back to William. William had served in the King's Guard for 8 years. 8 years of standing perfectly still. 8 years of ignoring taunts, weather, exhaustion, and pain. 8 years of being invisible. His commanding officer's words echoed in his mind from training. You are not a person. You are a symbol. You do not move, speak, or react. You are stone. You are silence. You are discipline. William had lived by those words. Until 3 days ago, when he visited his sister in the hospital. Emma was 31 years old. Stage 4 cancer. 3 weeks left, maybe less. She'd spent the last year trying to get a letter to the royal family, trying to thank them for something that happened when she was 7 years old. Something that saved her life back then, even though it couldn't save her now. She'd written to the palace 14 times. Every letter returned with a polite, generic response. The royal family appreciates your correspondence. It's nothing more. Nothing personal, Emma had cried in her hospital bed, her frail hand gripping William's. I just want them to know. I want Charles to know what his mother did for me. Before I die, I need someone to actually read this. William had taken the letter. Promised her he'd try. But try wasn't enough. Not anymore. So he'd made a decision that could cost him everything. His career. His reputation. Possibly his freedom. Royal protocol violations weren't taken lightly. But his sister was dying. And some things mattered more than rules. 9 o'clock arrived. Then 9:10. William's heart pounded so hard he was certain tourists could hear it. Sweat formed beneath his bearskin hat despite the cold. At 9:14, the palace doors opened. Security emerged first. Then palace staff. Then, in a perfectly tailored coat, King Charles himself. William's breath caught. This was it. This was the moment. Charles descended the steps slowly, talking quietly with an aide. His car waited at the curb, engine running. He'd be past William's post in seconds. Maybe 10 seconds. That was all the time William had. The king walked closer. 5 feet away. 4 feet. William's mind screamed at him. Don't do it. You'll be court-martialed. You'll be arrested. You'll destroy your career. But he saw Emma's face. Heard her weak voice. Please, Will, just try. Charles was 3 feet away now. William's hand moved to his jacket. Fingers found the envelope 2 feet away. William stepped forward, broke stance, extended his hand with the letter. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice cutting through the morning air like a gunshot. "Please, this is urgent." Everything stopped. Security lunged forward. The aide gasped. Tourists' cameras captured every second. And King Charles, caught mid-step, stared at the guard who'd just shattered centuries of protocol. William held the letter out, hand shaking. Knowing there was no going back now, the king's eyes moved from William's face to the envelope. And then something unexpected happened. Charles raised his hand. A single gesture that stopped the security guards from tackling William to the ground. The morning air felt electric, dangerous. Everyone waited. The king studied William's face, looked at the trembling hand holding the envelope. His expression was unreadable. Decades of royal training made his emotions impossible to gauge. "You're breaking protocol," Charles said quietly. Not angry, just stating fact. "Yes, Your Majesty." William's voice was steady, despite his terror. "I am. You understand the consequences?" "I do." "Then this must be extraordinarily important." William swallowed hard. "It's a letter from my sister, sir. She's dying. Stage 4 cancer. 3 weeks left. She tried to reach you through proper channels for a year. Every letter was returned with a generic response. She just wants you to read her words before she dies. That's all. Just read them." Charles glanced at his aide. Then, at the security team, still poised to intervene. Then back at William. "What's your name?" "Guard William Hayes, sir." "8th year of service? And your sister's name?" "Emma Hayes, Your Majesty." Charles reached out slowly, took the envelope from William's hand. His fingers brushed the paper, feeling its weight. He didn't open it, just held it. "I'll read it," Charles said. Then, to the security team, "Stand down." "This man is not a threat," William exhaled. Relief flooded through him so powerfully he nearly collapsed. But Charles wasn't finished. "However, you violated sacred protocol. That cannot be ignored. Your commanding officer will be notified immediately. You'll face consequences. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir. I understand. Thank you for taking the letter. That's all that matters." Charles studied him for another moment. Something flickered in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition of the impossible choice William had made. "You're relieved of duty," Charles said. "Effective immediately? Report to your commander." Then the king turned and walked to his car. The envelope remained in his hand, not passed to an aide, not tucked away. He held it like it actually mattered. The car door closed. The vehicle pulled away, and William stood there, no longer at attention, no longer invisible. Finally, just a man who'd done what he promised. Security surrounded him instantly. Hands gripped his arms. "Come with us. Now." They escorted him inside. Down corridors he'd guarded but never entered. Past portraits of monarchs whose guards had never dared break their silence. Into an office where his commanding officer, Colonel Morrison, waited with a face like thunder. Hayes. The colonel's voice was ice. "What in God's name were you thinking?" William stood at attention, out of habit. "Sir, I was delivering a letter to the king. You were breaking centuries of protocol. You were compromising security." Morrison stopped. Took a breath. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Yes, sir. I've given my dying sister peace. I've given her the chance to be heard. You've destroyed your career." "I know, sir." Morrison stared at him. 8 years of impeccable service, 8 years of perfect discipline. And you throw it away for a letter? "Not just a letter, sir. My sister's last wish." The colonel sat down heavily. "You'll be court-martialed. At minimum, you'll be dishonorably discharged. Your reputation will be ruined. You'll never work in security again. You understand this?" "I do, then why?" William met his eyes. "Because my sister is dying and I'm her brother before I'm a guard. Some things matter more than protocol." Morrison's face softened slightly. "I have a sister too," he said quietly. Then the hardness returned. But that doesn't change what happens next. You're suspended pending investigation. Surrender your uniform and credentials. You're dismissed. William removed his bearskin hat, his jacket, his white gloves. Piece by piece, he stripped away the identity he'd carried for 8 years. When he finished, standing in just his shirt and trousers, he felt lighter somehow. "Sir," William said, "I don't regret it. I know you don't. It's what makes this so tragic." Morrison stood. "You're a good soldier, Hayes, but you're a better brother. I hope your sister knows what you sacrificed for her." William left the palace in civilian clothes. Walked past tourists who had no idea what had just happened. The morning felt surreal. 4 hours ago, he'd been a royal guard. Now he was unemployed, facing court-martial, possibly jail. He should have felt devastated. Instead, he felt free. His phone rang. Emma's number. His heart clenched. "Will." Her voice was so weak. Did you give him the letter?" "I did. I handed it to him directly. He took it. He said he'd read it." Emma started crying. You didn't actually. I did. I gave you my word. But your job doesn't matter. You matter. Getting your letter to him mattered." "That's done now," Emma sobbed. Relief, gratitude, love, all mixed together. "Thank you. Thank you so much. I can't believe you actually did it. I'd do it again." Talked for 20 minutes. Emma told him how much it meant. How she could die in peace now knowing someone in the royal family would read her story. Would know what Queen Elizabeth had done for her all those years ago when they hung up. William sat on a park bench across from the palace. Stared at the building where he'd spent 8 years of his life. Where his career had just ended, he didn't cry. Didn't feel sorry for himself. He'd made his choice. He'd make it again 1,000 times. What William didn't know was that inside the palace, in a private study, King Charles was opening the envelope, was pulling out 3 handwritten pages, was beginning to read a story that would change everything. Charles sat in his private study, the letter spread across his desk. His schedule was packed. Meetings, appearances, obligations, stretching through the day. But something about the guard's desperate action made him pause. Made him actually read instead of delegating to staff. Emma's handwriting was shaky. The effects of chemotherapy, probably, or just weakness. But her words were clear. "Your Majesty, I am writing to tell you about something that happened 24 years ago. Something I've never forgotten. Something that saved my life." Charles leaned forward, kept reading. I was 7 years old. "My name was Emma Hayes, and I was dying of leukemia. The treatments weren't working. The doctors had given up. My parents had started planning my funeral." The words hit harder than Charles expected. He thought of his own children at that age. The fear every parent carries. But my mother wouldn't accept it. She wrote to Queen Elizabeth, not asking for money or special treatment, just asking for hope. Asking if Her Majesty could send me anything to help me believe miracles were possible. Charles stopped breathing. He knew his mother had read letters from children, had responded personally sometimes, but he'd never heard this story. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived. Written in your mother's own handwriting, she told me to be brave. Told me that even when things seem darkest, there's always light ahead. She said she was praying for me, that the whole palace was praying for me. Charles's throat tightened, but that wasn't all. She sent her personal doctor to consult with mine. Paid for an experimental treatment the insurance wouldn't cover. Never announced it publicly. Never made it about publicity. She just did it because a dying girl needed help. He hadn't known. His mother had done this quietly, privately, the way she did so many things. Charles pressed his hand against his mouth, emotion welling up unexpectedly. The treatment worked. I survived. I got to grow up, go to university, fall in love, have a life. All because your mother saw me. Really saw me. A nobody girl from nowhere special? She saw me and decided I was worth saving. Emma's letter continued for another 2 pages. describing how she'd carried Queen Elizabeth's letter with her everywhere for years, how she'd read it when times got hard, how it became her most precious possession. I'm dying now. A different cancer. No experimental treatments left to try. But I'm not afraid. I got 24 extra years because of your mother's kindness. I got to live. Really live. And before I go, I needed you to know what she did. How much it mattered. How one act of compassion created ripples that spread through my entire life. Charles's hands shook slightly. He thought of his mother, of her quiet strength, her private acts of charity that never made headlines. I tried to tell her while she was alive, wrote so many letters, but I don't think she ever saw them. The palace is big, and I'm sure she received thousands of letters. Mine probably never reached her desk. That's okay. She didn't do it for thanks. She did it because it was right. The final paragraph was the hardest to read. Your Majesty, I'm writing to you now because I'm running out of time. In a few weeks, I'll be gone. But before I go, I wanted someone in the royal family to know this story. To know what your mother did in private. To know that her kindness didn't just save one little girl. It saved me, which saved my brother from losing his sister too soon. It saved my parents from losing their only child. It created a whole future that wouldn't have existed otherwise. That's the power of compassion. It multiplies. Please tell her story someday. Let people know she was more than a crown and a title. She was a woman who saved lives in silence. With love, Emma Hayes. Charles set down the letter, covered his face with his hands. In his decades of public service, he'd received countless letters, complaints, requests, praise, criticism, but this was different. This was a testament to his mother's secret kindness. Proof of the person she was when no cameras watched. He picked up his phone, called his private secretary. Yes, Your Majesty? I need you to find someone for me. Emma Hayes. She's in hospital care. Terminal cancer. I need her location, and I need my schedule cleared for tomorrow afternoon. Sir, you have the Chancellor meeting? Reschedule it. This is more important. There was a pause. Of course, Your Majesty. I'll make the arrangements. Charles hung up, looked at the letter again, then at the photo on his desk of his mother. Queen Elizabeth smiling in private, away from formal portraits. Thank you for teaching me, he whispered to the photograph, for showing me what real duty looks like. He thought about Guard Hayes, the man who'd thrown away his career for his sister, who'd broken sacred protocol because love demanded it. Charles understood now why the guard had done it. Because some things transcended rules. Some moments required breaking protocol to honor what actually mattered. He called his secretary back. One more thing. The guard who gave me the letter this morning. William Hayes. I want the court-martial proceedings stopped. Sir, protocol violations of that magnitude, I'm aware. Stop the proceedings. I'll handle this personally, yes, Your Majesty. Charles stood, walked to the window. Outside, tourists photographed the palace. Guards stood at their posts, silent and still. None of them knowing that inside, their king was planning something unprecedented. He was going to visit Emma Hayes, personally, privately, and he was going to tell her what her letter meant, what his mother would have wanted her to know. But first, he needed to deal with her brother. The guard who'd risked everything for love. Charles understood that risk now. Understood that sometimes the most royal thing you can do is break protocol for the right reasons. He made a decision. One that would shock the palace staff. One that would confuse protocol officers. One that his mother would have approved of completely. William Hayes had broken the rules for his sister. Now Charles would break some rules too. For the same reason. Because compassion required it. Because some moments demanded humanity over hierarchy. He picked up the phone again. Get me Colonel Morrison. I want to speak with him personally. Tomorrow Charles would visit Emma, but today he had to fix what his own protocol had broken. He had to restore a good man who'd done the right thing. Asterisk. William sat in his small apartment, staring at nothing. It had been 6 hours since he'd been dismissed. 6 hours of waiting for official notification of his court-martial. 6 hours of knowing he'd destroyed his career and not regretting it. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Hello? Is this William Hayes? The voice was formal. Official. Yes, please hold for Colonel Morrison. William's stomach dropped. Here it was. The official notice. The beginning of the end. Hayes. Morrison's voice came through. I need you to report to the palace immediately. Sir, I understand. I'll come in for the proceedings. This isn't about proceedings. The king wants to see you. William froze. I'm sorry, what? You heard me? King Charles has requested your presence. A car is being sent to your location. Be ready in 10 minutes. But sir, I don't understand, neither do I. Hayes, but when the king requests your presence, you don't ask questions. You appear. The line went dead. William sat in stunned silence. The king wanted to see him. Why? To reprimand him personally? To witness his disgrace? It didn't make sense. He changed quickly. Put on the only suit he owned. Tried to steady his shaking hands. Whatever this was, he'd face it. He'd made his choice. He'd live with the consequences. The car arrived exactly 10 minutes later. Black, official, silent. Driver who offered no information. They drove through London traffic, through gates William knew by heart. Into the palace he'd guarded but never truly entered. He was led through corridors lined with portraits and history. Servants moved silently past. Everything felt surreal, like walking through a dream where nothing made sense. They stopped at a door. The aide knocked once, then opened it. Guard Hayes, Your Majesty. William stepped inside. The study was smaller than he expected. Warmer. Books lined the walls. A desk sat by the window. And behind it, King Charles stood, holding Emma's letter. Your Majesty. William bowed automatically. Sit down, Mr. Hayes. William sat. His heart hammered. Charles sat across from him, the letter still in his hand. I read your sister's letter, Charles said. Every word, thank you, sir. Do you know what it says? No, sir. Emma never told me the contents. She just asked me to deliver it. Charles studied him. So you broke protocol? Risked your career? Possibly your freedom? For a letter you hadn't even read? Yes, sir. Because my sister asked me to. Because she's dying and it mattered to her. Charles leaned back. My mother saved your sister's life 24 years ago. Paid for her treatment. Wrote to her personally. Emma wanted me to know that story before she died. William's breath caught. He hadn't known. Emma had never told him the details. Your sister tried to reach us through proper channels for a year, Charles continued. Every letter was filtered through staff. Generic responses sent. She never reached anyone who could actually help. The system failed her. Sir, I'm not here to criticize, but you should. The system did fail, and you recognize that. So you bypassed it. You broke the rules because the rules were preventing something important from happening. William didn't know what to say. This wasn't the conversation he'd expected. My mother believed in quiet compassion, Charles said. She did things privately. Helped people without fanfare. Your sister's letter reminded me of that. Reminded me what real service looks like. He stood. Walked to the window. You're facing court-martial for what you did this morning. Understand, sir? Do you also understand that you're the only person in the King's Guard who's ever directly handed me something? The only guard who's spoken to me unprompted in my entire life? Yes, sir. Do you regret it? William met his eyes. No, sir. I don't. Charles smiled slightly. Good, because neither do I. He returned to his desk, picked up a phone. Send him in. The door opened. Colonel Morrison entered, his expression carefully neutral. Colonel Charles said, I want the court-martial proceedings against Guard Hayes cancelled immediately. Morrison's eyes widened. Your Majesty, protocol violations of that magnitude were necessary, and I'm grateful for them. Charles looked at William. This man showed more courage this morning than most soldiers show in entire careers. He made an impossible choice, and made it correctly.
Oh.
If we allow guards to break protocol, we won't. This was an exceptional circumstance requiring an exceptional response, Mr. Hayes. Wasn't compromising security or acting maliciously. He was ensuring that an important message reached me, something our own system had failed to do. Morrison looked uncomfortable. If the proceedings are canceled, what happens to Hayes? Charles thought for a moment. What's your sister's condition, Mr. Hayes? Specifically. 3 weeks, Your Majesty. Maybe less. She's in hospice care at St. Mary's Hospital. Then you're on special assignment for the next month. You'll be my personal liaison to your sister. You'll ensure she has everything she needs. Full pay, full benefits. When this is over, we'll discuss your reinstatement. William couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was hearing. Your Majesty, Morrison tried again. This is highly irregular. So was my mother secretly paying for a dying child's medical treatment? But she did it anyway, because it was right. I'm doing this because it's right. Charles turned back to William. I'm going to visit your sister tomorrow. I want to tell her in person what her letter meant. What my mother would have wanted her to know. You'll arrange it. William found his voice. Sir, I don't know what to say. Say you'll take care of your sister. That's all that matters now. Well, thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you. Charles extended his hand. William shook it, still dazed. No, Mr. Hayes. Thank you. You showed me something important today. You showed me that sometimes breaking the rules is the most honorable thing you can do. My mother understood that. Now I do too. William left the palace in a daze. Back in the car. Back through London streets. Back to his apartment. But everything had changed. He called Emma immediately. Will, what happened? Did they court-martial you? The king read your letter. He wants to visit you tomorrow. He's coming to see you personally. Silence. Then, what? He read it. He understood. And he's coming. Emma started crying. I don't believe you. And I'm not being court-martialed. I'm being assigned to take care of you, full-time, for however long you need. His sister sobbed. Joy and disbelief and gratitude all mixed together. How did this happen? William looked at the palace in the distance. I think your letter did more than just tell a story. I think it reminded the king what really matters. Tomorrow, a king would visit a dying woman, would honor a promise his mother had made decades ago, would prove that royalty wasn't just about crowns and protocol. It was about seeing people, really seeing them, and choosing compassion over convenience, just like Queen Elizabeth had. Just like Emma's letter had reminded everyone, some things were more important than protocol, and sometimes breaking the rules was the most royal thing you could do. The next afternoon, St. Mary's Hospital experienced something it never had before. A royal visit, not announced publicly. No press, no fanfare. Just 3 security vehicles pulling up quietly to a side entrance. William waited outside Emma's room, wearing civilian clothes, his heart racing. He'd spent the morning preparing her, explaining what was happening, making sure she understood this was real. Emma had cried, then laughed, then cried again. I'm dying, and the king is coming to see me. How is this my life? Because you wrote a letter that mattered, William had told her. Because you told a story that needed telling. Now, standing in the hospital corridor, William watched Charles walk toward him. No crown, no robes, just a man in a simple suit carrying something in his hand. Mr. Hayes. Gah. Charles nodded. How is she? Weak, sir, but excited and a little terrified. Charles smiled slightly. So am I. They entered together. Emma lay in bed, impossibly thin, dark circles under her eyes, but fully alert. Her expression when she saw Charles was pure wonder. Miss Hayes. Charles approached her bedside. Thank you for writing to me. Thank you for sharing your story. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. Your Majesty, I can't believe you're actually here. I needed to be. Your letter. It reminded me of something I'd forgotten. Something important. He sat in the chair beside her bed. William stood by the door, giving them space but close enough to hear. "My mother never told me about you," Charles said. "She never mentioned saving a 7-year-old girl. That's how she was. She did these things quietly, never sought recognition. She saved my life," Emma said. "I wouldn't be here without her. You gave me a gift. You gave me a window into who my mother really was. Beyond the crown, beyond the public image, you showed me her heart." Charles reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, old, yellowed with age. "I went through my mother's private papers last night. Found something I think belongs to you." He handed it to Emma. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter in Queen Elizabeth's handwriting, and a photograph. Emma gasped. This is me. This is the photo my mother sent with her original letter. I was 7 years old. My mother kept it," Charles said softly. "For 24 years, she kept your photograph. She remembered you." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "She kept it." "She did. And there's a notation on the back of the photo." In her handwriting, Emma turned it over. "Read the words written there in careful script. Emma Hayes. Proof that miracles happen. May 1999. Emma clutched the photo to her chest and sobbed. William moved closer, took her hand. Charles waited quietly, letting her feel everything. "She remembered me," Emma whispered. "I wasn't just another letter. I mattered to her. You did. You do. And I want you to know something else." Charles leaned forward. "Your letter is going into the royal archives. Your story will be preserved. Future generations will read about my mother's compassion, about what she did for you. Your letter becomes part of history now." Emma looked at him through tears. "Really? And I want to do something else, if you'll permit me." "Anything, Your Majesty. The treatment my mother funded for you. The experimental protocol that saved your life. I want to fund similar research. In your name. The Emma Hayes Cancer Research Initiative. So other children get the chance you got." William's hand tightened on his sister's. This was beyond anything they'd imagined. "But I'm nobody," Emma said. "I'm just a regular person." "That's exactly the point. My mother saw you. A regular person who needed help. She didn't help you because you were special or connected or important. She helped you because you were human. And that's who deserves help most. The regular people. The forgotten ones." Charles stood. "I can't give you more time, Miss Hayes. I wish I could, but I can give you this. Your story will live on. Your mother's plea for hope will inspire others. And children who are dying today will have a chance because of what happened to you." Emma couldn't speak, just nodded through her tears. Charles placed his hand gently on hers. "Thank you for surviving. Thank you for living those 24 extra years. And thank you for making sure we knew about it. You've done something remarkable." He turned to William. "Take care of her. Whatever she needs. No restrictions." "Yes, sir." "Thank you." Charles nodded once more to Emma, then left quietly, his security following. The room fell silent except for Emma's soft crying. William sat beside her, held her hand, looked at the photograph of his sister as a little girl held in Queen Elizabeth's private collection for decades. "She remembered me," Emma whispered again. All this time, she remembered. "You matter to her, just like you matter to everyone who knows you." Emma looked at her brother. "I'm ready now. I can go in peace." "Don't talk like that." "Well, it's okay. This was all I needed. To know I mattered. To know my life wasn't just random chance. That someone saw me and chose to help. That's everything." She held the photograph close. "I gotta thank her. Through her son, I gotta say what I needed to say." William stayed with her through the afternoon. They talked about their childhood, about their parents who died years ago, about the life Emma had lived in those 24 borrowed years. She'd fallen in love, traveled to Paris, earned a degree, taught music to children. She'd lived fully, completely squeezing every drop of joy from the time she was given. "I don't regret anything," she said as the sun set through her hospital window. "I got more than most people get. I got a second chance." How many people can say that? Not many. I got to see my brother break protocol for me. Gotta watch you risk everything. That's love, Will. Real love. William kissed her forehead. I'd do it again. Right. I know. That's who you are. That night, William slept in a chair beside Emma's bed. He didn't want to leave. Didn't want to miss a moment of whatever time remained. The next morning, a palisade arrived with an envelope. Inside was a letter from Charles. Miss Hayes, I wanted you to know that yesterday was one of the most important meetings of my reign. You taught me about true service, about seeing people, not positions. Thank you for that gift. Your story will inspire generations. With deepest respect, Charles R. Emma read it 3 times, then carefully placed it with her other treasures. The old letter from Queen Elizabeth, the photograph, the proof that she'd mattered. 3 days later, Emma passed away peacefully. William was holding her hand. She died with a smile on her face, with peace in her heart, with the knowledge that she'd been seen, remembered, and honored. At her funeral, a wreath arrived from the palace, a personal message from the king expressing his condolences and his gratitude for Emma's life. William stood at his sister's grave, knowing she'd died happy, knowing that breaking protocol had given her exactly what she needed: closure, validation, love. Sometimes, the rules needed to be broken. Sometimes compassion required defying tradition. Sometimes the most important duty was to humanity, not protocol. Queen Elizabeth had known that. Emma had known that. And now, because of one desperate act and one honest letter, King Charles knew it too. 2 weeks after Emma's funeral, William received another summons to the palace. This time he knew why. His temporary assignment had ended. Now came the decision about his future. He dressed in the suit he'd worn for Emma's funeral, walked through the same palace gates he'd guarded for 8 years. Everything looked different now. Or maybe he was different. Maybe breaking protocol had broken something in him that needed. Breaking Colonel Morrison met him in the same office where he'd been stripped of his uniform. Hayes, good to see you, sir. The king wants to speak with you. But first, I need to say something. Morrison's expression softened. What you did was wrong according to every rule we have. But it was also the bravest thing I've seen in 30 years of service. I wanted you to know that. What? William nodded. Thank you, sir. No, I'm sorry. About your sister. She died happy. That's all I could ask for. Morrison led him to the same study where he'd met Charles before. The king stood by the window, looking out at the grounds. Mr. Hayes, please, sit. William sat. Charles turned to face him. I want to talk about your future, Charles said. You've been on leave? Now we need to decide what happens next. I understand, sir. The question is, do you want to return to the guard? William thought about it. 8 years of standing still, of being invisible, of serving in silence. Honestly, sir, I don't know. I'm not sure I can go back to being just a symbol. Not after everything. Charles nodded. I thought you might say that, which is why I have a proposal. Sat down across from William. The Emma Hayes Cancer Research Initiative is being established. It needs someone to run it. Someone who understands its purpose. Someone who knew Emma and can honor her story properly. William's heart skipped. Sir, I'm not qualified. You're perfectly qualified. You're her brother. You know why this matters? You'll make sure it stays true to her memory. But I have no experience in charity work. You'll learn. We'll provide training, support, resources. But the heart of it? That comes from you. From understanding what this really means, William sat back, overwhelmed. You're offering me a job running a royal charity? I'm offering you a purpose. Emma's letter changed something in me, made me want to do more than just maintain tradition. I want to create new traditions. Traditions of compassion, of seeing people, of breaking protocol when humanity requires it. Charles stood, walked to his desk, picked up a framed photograph. The picture of 7-year-old Emma that Queen Elizabeth had kept, this will hang in the Foundation's offices, a reminder of why we do this work. Not for recognition, not for headlines, for the Emma Hayes of the world, the forgotten ones. The regular people who just need someone to see them. William felt tears building. Sir, I don't know what to say. Yes. Say you'll honor your sister by making sure her story saves other lives. Say you'll help me create the kind of legacy my mother would be proud of. William looked at Emma's photograph, at her 7-year-old smile, at the girl who'd been given a second chance and had lived it fully. Yes, he said. I'll do it. Charles smiled, extended his hand. Thank you, Mr. Hayes, for everything. For breaking protocol. For reminding me what really matters. For being exactly what the guard should be, brave enough to choose compassion over rules. They shook hands. Two men from completely different worlds, connected by a dying woman's letter and a brother's love. There's one more thing, Charles said. Your uniform. You earned it. 8 years of service. I want you to keep it, honorably. Your discharge will be marked. It's completed with distinction. Your record will reflect your courage, not your protocol violation, Your Majesty. That's too generous. It's accurate. You served with distinction. You just did it differently than anyone expected. William left the palace that day with a new purpose, a new life, a new way of serving that honored both duty and humanity. The Emma Hayes Cancer Research Initiative launched 3 months later. William stood beside King Charles at the announcement. Media everywhere. But this time, the attention felt right. This time, it mattered. Charles spoke to the crowd. This initiative exists because of a letter. A letter from a dying woman who wanted to say thank you, who wanted to ensure that what happened to her could happen for others. Emma Hayes was given a second chance by my mother 24 years ago. Now, we'll give that same chance to children who need it. He gestured to William. And this work will be led by Emma's brother, William Hayes, a man who showed us all what true service looks like. Who taught us that sometimes breaking the rules is the most honorable thing you can do. The initiative thrived. In its first year, it funded treatments for 43 children. By year 3, over 200. Each child received a letter from the Foundation. Each family was told Emma's story. Her legacy multiplied, spreading hope the way Queen Elizabeth's kindness had spread to her. William visited the palace regularly, met with Charles to discuss the Foundation's progress, became, unexpectedly, a friend to the king. Two men who'd learned the same lesson from the same source, that titles didn't matter as much as humanity. That protocol served people, not the other way around. On the anniversary of Emma's death, William stood at her grave, placed flowers, told her about the children her story had saved. You did it, Em. You made sure your life mattered, made sure your second chance became other people's second chances too. He looked at her headstone. At the inscription he'd chosen, Emma Hayes lived fully, loved deeply, changed everything. His phone buzzed. A text from a mother whose daughter had just been approved for treatment through the Foundation. Thank you for saving my baby. Thank you for seeing us. William smiled through tears. This was Emma's real legacy. Not the letter, not the royal visit. This, the children who lived, the families who stayed whole, the hope that multiplied from one act of compassion 24 years ago. He thought about the moment he'd broken protocol. The moment his hand had extended with that letter, the split-second decision that had seemed so reckless and desperate, it had changed everything. Changed Emma's last days. Changed his career. Changed how a king saw his duty. One letter. One impossible choice. One guard who chose love over rules, and now hundreds of children got to live because of it. William walked away from the grave, back to his car, back to his work. He had meetings scheduled, families to contact, lives to change. He'd been a royal guard who stood in silence for 8 years. Now he was something better. He was his sister's voice. He was hope for dying children. He was proof that breaking protocol could be the most noble act of all. Queen.
Act.
Elizabeth had started it by seeing one little girl and choosing compassion. Emma had continued it by refusing to let that kindness be forgotten. William had carried it forward by risking everything for love, and now it would never end. The Emma Hayes Cancer Research Initiative would save lives long after everyone involved was gone, would prove that one person's compassion could echo through generations. That was the real protocol, not silence, not rigidity, not tradition for tradition's sake. The real protocol was simple: see people, help them, choose humanity over hierarchy, break the rules when love requires it. Queen Elizabeth knew it. Emma knew it. William learned it. And now, because of one desperate act on a cold November morning, the whole world knew it too. Some rules were made to be broken. Some protocols existed only until something more important came along. Some moments required choosing between duty to tradition and duty to humanity. William had chosen humanity, and in doing so, had honored every duty that actually mattered. That was the story of the guard who broke protocol. Not a story of rebellion. A story of love, of courage, of understanding that real service meant serving people, not systems. Emma would have been proud. Queen Elizabeth would have approved. And somewhere in the palace, King Charles smiled, knowing that his reign would be marked not by rigid tradition, but by compassionate courage, the kind of courage that risks everything for a dying sister's wish, the kind that changes the world, one broken rule at a time.